In a surprising turn of events at the 2023 UN Summit, African leaders made a united effort to bring attention to their grievances against the Western world. The president of Ghana openly criticized the UN, labeling it as the most unfair organization, while the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo took the bold step of demanding the departure of UN peacekeeping forces from his country. However, it was a representative from Burkina Faso who delivered the most daring statements during the United Nations General Assembly. Speaking on behalf of the esteemed leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore, the representative shed light on the current actions undertaken by the Western nations. The address given at the United Nations General Assembly served as a platform to reveal what the West is presently engaged in, capturing the attention of the international community. Since orchestrating a coup in 2022, Ibrahim Traore has served as the transitional president of Burkina Faso. Recognizing the potent effect his words would carry while attired in his military uniform at the UN General Assembly, Traore astutely chose to send his representative, the Minister of State, to deliver his message. Interestingly, even though Traore himself did not attend the summit, the words spoken by his representative were meticulously crafted by Traore, causing great discomfort among Western leaders. The Minister of State commenced his address by paying homage to revered leaders such as Che Guevara of Argentina, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X of the USA, Nelson Mandela of South Africa, and Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya. He emphasized that these remarkable figures met tragic fates as they courageously spoke up for their oppressed populations. Their unwavering advocacy for their suffering communities, which endured violence, rape, oppression, and exploitation, resulted in their execution, assassination, imprisonment, or poisoning. Favoring a straightforward approach over eloquent rhetoric, the Minister of State vowed to convey the unvarnished truth. He unequivocally exposed the prevailing deception inherent in statecraft, diplomatic hypocrisy, the insatiable thirst for power, and the malevolent inclination of one human to dominate and exploit another. It was evident to all who precisely he was referring to. While Western leaders anticipated discussions about a supposedly ideal world, the Minister of State of Burkina Faso opted to confront them with the harsh realities of the present. He drew attention to the disconcerting disparity between the annual speeches brimming with promises and commitments, and the widening gap between words and actions concerning the principles enshrined in the UN Charter. Principles such as justice, equality, dignity, integrity, self-determination, state sovereignty, territorial inviolability, and adherence to international law remained increasingly distant from reality. The tragic events unfolding in Libya, the Sahel region, and the Russia-Ukraine crisis exemplified this disheartening phenomenon. Libya, ravaged by catastrophic flooding, witnessed the loss of thousands of lives. While nations offered condolences and projected an image of unity in defense of these values, the Minister of State demanded intellectual honesty and moral accountability. He underscored the undeniable fact that collective or individual complicity, whether through past actions or active collusion, in supporting those responsible for Libya's man-made disaster, looting, and the assassination of its leader, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, on October 20, 2011, cannot be ignored. Amidst the outpouring of condolences and displays of unity, the Minister of State emphasized the pressing need for intellectual honesty and moral accountability. He underscored that collective or individual complicity in supporting the perpetrators behind Libya's man-made disaster, looting, and the assassination of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi on October 20, 2011, cannot be denied. The alternative path Libya could have taken, had it has been allowed to thrive, untouched by the invasion and killing of its leader, was tragically lost. Furthermore, the Minister of State stressed the imperative for the United Nations to remain impervious to manipulation by any nation. In doing so, he exposed the fact that the UN has been exploited in the past by powerful nations, such as the United States, to disrupt global peace. He acknowledged the unfortunate reality that a small group of individuals within the African continent have subjected it to humiliation through their reckless governance. He emphasized the importance of African unity and solidarity as a collective force capable of preventing imperialists from setting nations like Niger ablaze, reminiscent of the tragic events witnessed in Libya. Burkina Faso unequivocally called for the transformation of ECOWAS, the African Union, and the United Nations into genuine people-centric organizations. This transformation should transcend being mere tools wielded by a minority of heads of state to destabilize fraternal nations through the assassination of their leaders. Shifting the focus to the Ukraine-Russian war crisis, Burkina Faso highlighted the persistent conflict fueled by vested interests. Several Western nations, notably the United States and the European Union, have provided substantial military support to this protracted conflict. The Minister of State drew attention to the distressing reality of Ukrainian civilians being armed and portrayed as patriotic fighters, operating tanks amid this conflict. Instead of exacerbating the situation, the United Nations should assume the role of a responsible mediator to bring an end to the war. Exposing the true intentions of the West, the Minister of State remarked that much like previous conflicts in Mali, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso, these nations grapple with wars imposed upon them under the pretext of combating terrorism. However, these interventions have resulted in widespread terror and destruction, raising questions about the true motivations behind such actions. In a poignant address, the State Minister of Burkina Faso expressed deep dismay at the conduct of certain heads of state within ECOWAS and the African Union, who, influenced by capitalist imperialist forces, unjustly label these patriotic individuals as militias. Such baseless allegations lack any foundation or justification, casting doubt on the sincerity of the international community's commitment to combating terrorism. The minister went on to expose further instances of Western and UN interference, shedding light on the cynical sanctions imposed on Burkina Faso following the events of September 30, 2022. The so-called international community, spearheaded by France, sought to impose their preferred candidate for the role of Prime Minister in Burkina Faso, but their attempts were resolutely rejected. This bold statement was made directly in the face of France, without hesitation. Additionally, the State Minister of Burkina Faso revealed France's audacious attempts to impose its own choices for various critical government positions, only to be met with unwavering resistance. He also brought attention to the West's utilization of blackmail as a tool to coerce other nations into submission and compliance with their prescribed policies. With a stern warning, the minister emphasized that the failure of those in power to assist people in peril will be held accountable by history. The international community's neglect in aiding states under terrorist attacks exposes the deep-seated hypocrisy and dominance of certain powers within the UN. Burkina Faso declared that the African people do not harbor anti-French sentiments. Instead, their concerns stem from issues such as condescension, arrogance, insolence, sufficiency, paternalism, resource exploitation, and organized crime perpetuated by Western powers. The minister made it abundantly clear that African people vehemently reject control or domination, particularly through the fabrication of conflicts and terrorism, as witnessed in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Africans are acutely aware of the economic, social, cultural, and security challenges arising from secret agreements, including colonial debts and currency-related matters. Burkina Faso stressed that African countries refuse to bear the burden of debts that perpetuate suffering while seeking genuine emancipation. A crucial aspect that deserves attention is the arrangement between France and West and Central African countries, wherein France produces currency bills for these nations in exchange for the custody of their gold reserves. This arrangement, essentially offering paper in return for valuable gold bricks, unveils a distressing form of structural exploitation. In light of this, the true intentions behind the deployment of Western troops under the guise of UN peacekeeping missions in Africa come into sharp focus. It becomes evident that their primary purpose was never to bring stability or foster peace within the continent. Instead, these forces were mobilized to capitalize on Africa's abundant resources. Reports and claims from African countries, such as Mali, have surfaced, suggesting France's involvement in supporting terrorist groups within Mali. This insidious tactic allows for the subsequent deployment of UN peacekeeping forces, purportedly to eradicate these very terrorists. However, the eradication of these groups remains elusive. In the case of Congo, despite a presence spanning over 25 years, UN forces have been unable to eliminate the terrorist factions. This further underscores the fact that these UN forces and Western troops did not arrive in Africa with the genuine intention of combating terrorism. Their true agenda revolves around the looting and exploitation of Africa's precious natural resources. This raises pertinent questions about the West's genuine interest in peacekeeping efforts on the African continent. Do you agree with Burkina Faso's assertion that Western troops are solely present in Africa to exploit and plunder its natural resources?